Ken, I made you the co-host.
That's good, thank you.
That means like Ed McMahon.
Just like it.
Is he going to introduce you? Here's Bob.
You might be knocking on your door with the publisher's house clearing.
Yeah.
Ed McMahon was the sidekick, not the co-host.
I'm definitely not a sidekick, that's for sure. I'm way in the back.
We're waiting for a couple more members to join. All right, good evening. I'm going to welcome to the December 20th meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission. We'll take roll call. Ken,
Here,
Paul,
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Teresa.
You're muted, Teresa.
And I do not.
Here, sorry.
see- Thank you. And I don't see Jim yet, but we'll start. First up is the approval of the minutes from December 6th. Any questions or comments? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Ken?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
And I also approve those minutes. All right. All right, let's see, the first thing we have up here is 10 Broadway, Newton, Element C. And it's notice of intent for the construction of a 124 unit multi-family residential building within buffer to inland bank, and we do not have a DEP file number yet, it looks like. John, is that your project?
That would be me, yes.
Okay,
Good evening, John Ogren with Hayes Engineering. We're here representing 10 Broadway. It's actually the company that manages it, Kimco. If I can be allowed to share my screen, that
please
would
do.
be helpful. Can everyone see that?
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so it's an site with existing building and parking. It's basically 99,000 square foot parcel. It's located at 10 Broadway. So Broadway Street's here. There's a small little portion that fronts on North Ave. So it's basically right at the corner of Broadway and North Ave. Just to orientate yourself, Main Street is out down here at the bottom of the street, and then Crystal Lake is kind of to the southwest of the property. The majority of the site lies within the industrial zone. There is a small portion that's business in the back.
And there's that railroad track along the backside?
Yeah, there's kind of industrial use here. There's another industrial use in this long skinny piece. And then the railroad tracks are right here and actually are right just adjacent to the Crystal Lake. So there's a couple properties in between us and Crystal Lake. And there is some railroad tracks between us and Main Street. Those are essentially abandoned. So the tracks in the back here are the active line. So as I said, there's an existing building. Right now, it's basically a fitness center. That's what it's being used as. As you can see, the majority of the site is essentially paved for parking. There is some green areas along the westerly edge and to the very rear of the property, and some small little pieces next to the building. But for the most part, it's basically impervious. There's a large entrance that exists here. It's about 65 feet wide that enters and exits onto Broadway Street. As far as existing drainage, there's some kind of a mishmash. There's kind of the dry well in the back here. It looks like the building might tie into it. There's essentially a catch basin out front that goes and eventually ties into the street drainage in Broadway. As far as resources on the property, from a wetlands perspective, obviously there's Crystal Lake, there's inland bank associated with that. And this is shown as this 100-foot buffer here. So that just kind of clips the back edge of this property. There's an outlet from Crystal Lake that is piped under the tracks and the adjacent property to basically a drainage swale shown in blue here. Then from there, it's piped from here underneath Broadway and continues on and converges with another water body coming in right at basically converges right at North Ave, goes under North Ave and the DPW, and continues on toward the center of town. I'll get into a little bit more, but we looked at this basically this drainage ditch, and in terms of whether it might qualify as a river under the Rivers Protection Act. And I'll go through that, but we're showing it now as inland bank associated with this. And then there would be 100-foot buffer with that and Crystal Lake. Just so you can see, let's zoom up here, it's pretty much surrounded by, crushed stone, this area. There's really no substantial vegetation in this area. Then the edge of pavement is fairly close right here. So as far as, I'm sorry, I do want to go through the river. So looking at this in terms of whether it was a stream or river, the first criteria is looking at the the current USGS map, and looking at the most current USGS map, it does not, if I can find it again. Come on. Keep going by it. So this is a clip of the most current USGS map. This is our site here. You can see the abandoned railroad tracks here, the existing railroad track, the live railroad tracks, Crystal Lake, and it's not showing any blue line at all. So it doesn't seem to meet that criteria. Next criteria is a river or stream shown as intermittent or not shown on the current USGS map or more recent map provided by the department that has a watershed size greater than or equal to 1 square mile is perennial. So we took a look at essentially on the Mass GIS website, they have defined a Zone B, which is essentially the watershed to Crystal Lake, tributary to Crystal Lake. That watershed is, because obviously it's a drinking water supply. And in looking at that watershed that's provided by the Mass GIS, that tributary area is 0.87 square miles. So that would put us less than one square mile. The next criteria is the stream shown as intermittent or not shown on the current USGS map, which is where we're at. That has a watershed size that's less than a square mile is intermittent unless the stream has a watershed size of at least half square mile and has predicted flow rate of greater than 0.01 cubic feet. Well, obviously this has greater than half a square mile, it's 0.87. And looking at stream stats, we tried to run stream stats on this, and stream stats just basically essentially failed in this area. If you look at stream stats, it shows some really weird channels going this way, and the watershed that it comes up with doesn't make sense, and it's not able to predict, produce any of that information. But basically, if the stream has a watershed of at least half a square mile, and the superficial geology of the contributing drainage area to the stream at the park site contains 75% or more stratified drift, the issuing authorities shall find the stream to be perennial. So in this case, we took a look at, and maybe a little hard to see, we overlaid the superficial geological maps on over this, and essentially the areas that are kind of shown kind of orange color, and you can look over here in the legend, where is it now? It's glacial stratified deposits course, and there's also blue, which is stratified deposits fine, but that does not show up within this watershed. So essentially we looked at these orange areas and took a look at what percentage, what the area that was, and that came to 0.49 square miles, which ends up being 56% of the watershed. So we would be under that 75% criteria, to come to the finding that it would be a perennial stream. So that's basically how we got to the point that, applying these standards to this watershed, this official geology, that this would not qualify, would be considered a river under the Rivers Act. Does that make sense? No.
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh, we can discuss it further if need be. So in terms of what we're proposing, basically proposing to remove the existing building. We're proposing 124 unit building in its place with associated parking. There'll be a parking garage. We have two entrances, one on the westerly side that comes in, loops around to the entrance in the front, and then the exit here. And essentially we'll have 83 parking spaces in the garage and 61 that would be surface parking. Also providing a loading area. If people come in and they're moving or whatnot, they have a place to do it. Also for trash. Sewer and water will be connecting to existing public services out in Broadway. So probably more interest to the commission is this project would be considered redevelopment. Obviously, it's by looking at the existing conditions, it's definitely developed. So this would be a redevelopment, and what we're proposing is adding drainage, catch basins, drain manholes along this entrance driveway, going out and connecting into Broadway Street. We're proposing deep sump catch basins, particle separator that will be located here at the end before it discharges out to Broadway Street. So that will improve the water quality of what's running off the site. Probably the biggest significant change, for the drainage system itself is obviously there's a lot more landscape or green space on this plan than what's existing. We're actually reducing the amount of impervious area by about 14,000 square feet. And based on that, we'll have a reduction in the rate and runoff of this sufficient stormwater off the site and connecting into the Broadway drainage system.
John, what are you proposing with the roof runoff?
That's going to connect directly into this drainage system. There's actually a connection here. One of the things we did look at was, potential for, maybe some additional recharge, infiltration. But based on borings and past test holes, the groundwater here is fairly close to the surface. There was a geotechnical report that showed it, anywhere from 3 to 5 feet below the surface. There was a couple places where it was just over 2 feet deep, and that's not surprising based on, we have Crystal Lake right here. So there's really not much opportunity for, adding some additional infiltration. But as I said, with that reduction of impervious area, we're increasing the recharge into the ground. And there's also, I just wanted to talk, so we do have a landscape plan. And just in terms of, in the areas, buffer areas, we're showing removal of pavement, adding some trees, bushes, landscape areas along kind of that buffer zone to Crystal Lake. And then also we're removing the pavement up near this drainage channel and introducing trees and shrubs along this area, basically landscaping this area and pulling the pavement away from that resource area. I think that pretty much sums up what we're proposing, and certainly answer any questions.
John, how many stories is this building proposed?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that. It's a five-story
Five-story.
building. Yeah, first level is the garage, and then four stories above.
Is it rental or is it condominium, John?
I believe it's going to be apartments.
Did you say there are going to be deep sumps on those catch basins?
Yeah, the proposed catch basins will be deep sump catch basin. And like I said, here we're at the end of it, end of the water that we're collecting from the paved surfaces. It will be going through a particle separator. It's called a Barracuda. And it's very similar to like a storm scepter.
Okay, so it's a swirl chamber type structure.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
John, I have a question for you. the stream that exists there now coming out of Crystal Lake, that goes down this property line, is that correct?
Yeah.
It turns into a culvert?
Yeah, it goes, so there's an outlet from the lake
Right,
where it discharges into this area
an open
here.
area,
And then
right.
there's another pipe that goes from here out to, and it connects into the drain manhole here, just on this side of Broadway,
Okay,
and connects into that. And then it actually continues on under Broadway Street.
right,
I go
okay,
far
that's,
enough.
yeah,
Next to North Ave, basically.
okay. And you're not doing anything to that stream, is that correct?
No, we're not proposing anything.
So how does that, do you consider that when you figured out your sufficient, what was it, the sufficient drainage area or whatever how does that get calculated? And does any of this stream location included? How did you come up with that 49% or whatever it was? Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you're talking about this? Yeah,
yeah, so is,
this black line is basically the watershed to Crystal Lake.
okay, but when it says here, it talks about, and official geology of the contributing drainage area to the stream at the project site contains 75% more stratified drift. So does that apply to the area of the pipe? And in that area too, is that included? I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
You're talking about the small area here?
Yeah, I'm talking about the length along the pipe to, we have jurisdiction over the pipe right until it crosses the street. Well, actually to the other side, but to your property where it intersects the road.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a small area here. that
But
would-
not enough to change your,
Yeah, it's not gonna change, we're dealing in square miles here, and it's not gonna really affect the answer. I mean, I could add that area on if you'd like, but
because you.
it's just gonna bump up the tributary area slightly, and
You only need 0.01%. 0.01 would get you, because it was 50%, right, wasn't it, or was it?
75.
Oh, it was 75.
Yeah,
Yeah.
0.49 is square miles.
Okay. All right, never mind. So that's not gonna help.
yeah, I mean, it would just be, there's a small area here that actually you could argue there's kind of a depression here. Like I said, there's a dry well in the existing condition where the water kind of flows into here.
But, so do you have it outlined where you came up with that 49%? Do you have, do you have a line on this or a layer on this that would tell us how that was calculated?
Yeah, essentially the areas that are orange, that are inside the black line.
That's giving you, oh, that's inside the black line. Okay,
Yeah, the black line is the watershed to the lake.
okay.
And
now I
so
see.
any of the places where it's orange inside that watershed
Yeah,
counted to get the 49 square miles. Or the
Okay.
56%. Yeah, there's some areas in there that were excluded, like these purple areas, which are basically wetland areas. Those don't count
mhm,
towards the stratified drift.
okay.
Well, John, can you go back to the, just going back to your other map? I just want to make sure I know that the resource areas, based on your interpretation of that being, of that pipe, are they just, can you go back to the other one with the red line? Yeah. So you have two lines. One is the 100-foot buffer to the inland bank. And that just assumes that assumes your characterization of that. What is the other line? What is the other line on the other line? I'm sorry to be, the other line,
That would be 100 feet from the bank of the lake.
Okay. So you're, okay, so, and you're saying that, so really the part that's within our jurisdiction is the part that's just inside of those, right?
It'd
And
be
the,
like, yeah, this and this area here, correct.
I'm asking, this sounds stupid, but what is the purpose of that pipe coming from Crystal Lake? Is it just when it hits a certain, when the level of the lake gets too high, it just drains into that? I don't really understand.
Yeah, I never really went down there. I'm not so sure that they like people hanging around.
Yeah, what's the,
Edge of the lake, but yeah, this essentially it gets to a certain elevation and it will flow out.
and how much of a pitch do you think there is? I'm just curious how much of a, that, I mean, obviously this is meant that water can only go in one direction, right? And not go reverse direction and go into the lake from here, right? Am I correct on that? There's no
Yeah,
possibility that water can get to the lake through that.
I mean, we can investigate it further. I don't know that.
Well, that would be that would kind of be of some interest to me, just to understand what it is that, because obviously protecting that lake is, if something could get into the lake, then that's maybe different than if water can only go from the lake.
I mean, in general, all this, except for this area here that eventually fills up in the back and then spills over into this ditch area. There's kind of a high point right here in the building. All this flows out towards Broadway, away from the lake. None of this flows back towards the lake, at least surface wise. I mean, I can show, we can get some more additional.
There's an invert shown on the pipe into the swale.
What does that mean?
Yeah, there's an invert here. This is 84.8 coming in.
Any idea what the lake is?
I believe it is 89.5 is what I.
Nearly 4 feet, 5 feet.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't investigate. I don't know how this actual structure what this structure actually looks like. But yeah, if there's 5 feet of difference, then it's not gonna flow back towards Crystal Lake.
Okay. So we should confirm. I'd just be interested in just making sure that there's a high confidence that would be the case. It probably would have happened already if it weren't, but I assume.
There's also contours around that swale to tell you kind of where the top of it is.
Yeah, I mean, but we're showing here the edge of the water was around 85.4 in here, and then you can see this top of bank was up closer to 88, 87.9, somewhere in there. So there's, let's see, 80, there's about 2.5 to 3 feet from the top of this bank to at least the water level when we were there.
And that means that, and so John, say that you were wondering whether it was, what did you say at the beginning, that the possibilities were to characterize that? One is a stream, a perennial stream, and the other was a river. Was that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's essentially whether we're applying the standards, the criteria for a river versus.
And what would have been I just want to understand what would the criteria have been if this were a river? I mean, how would that have, what would that have meant?
It actually would reduce the buffer area because the way the definition is, if you have a pipe like this, it's perpendicular to the pipe, so it would actually be an area kind of like this for the 100-foot. Then obviously there would be, you know, it would go out another 100 feet. So it would actually
That's not right.
limit the area, kind of reduce the area.
I don't think that's right, John. Isn't there a buffer zone to, I mean, the pipe, the stream that's buried, even though it's intermittent, isn't there a buffer zone to that, 100-foot buffer zone? To the culvert?
No, it's pretty clear. If it's a river, then it's perpendicular to the
No,
pipe.
but I'm saying, I'm also saying that the culvert has a resource, has a buffer zone to it, which you don't show.
No, the pipe does not have a buffer zone.
Why not?
It's because, as I said, it stops at the pipe. This extends out further because we're looking at the bank itself. But besides all that, I mean, obviously, we would then have to apply, you know, redevelopment project in the riverfront area. You know, we'd have to go through those criteria, A through F, which I know you guys are aware of. We would have to apply that standard to that area, that, and it again, it would be limited to essentially this part of the project.
But if you're saying it's a material difference and how this, you know, the criteria would be materially different. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to understand is it's a big deal, whether which you're going to call it is a pretty big deal, right? You know, whether it's a river or whether it's just an intermittent stream, right? Or perennial stream, rather. I just want to know what we should be focusing, you know, what we should be giving more attention to, just to make sure that we, and that seems to me like that determination is, you know, right off the bat, an important one.
And you would have land underwater as a resource area, correct? If it was a stream, perennial stream.
Right. It is a perennial stream, isn't it? Isn't that what you were saying it is? Oh,
He's saying it's intermittent.
oh, okay. So there's three possibilities: intermittent stream, perennial stream, and a river.
Rebecca, I know you looked into this. Are you?
No, it would be an intermittent stream. If it's perennial, then it's a river.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I see. So it's two. I see. Okay. Thank you.
But you would have land underwater if it is a river
Yes, you
as a
would.
resource area.
Well, you have land underwater potentially anyways, but that resource area is contained within the bank.
Yeah,
And again, we're not proposing to do anything with that area.
So in order to resolve this, we'd have to figure out for ourselves whether we refute John's calculation, right, of whether or not it's perennial.
So Rebecca, I know you kind of looked at this. Do you agree with that interpretation?
I definitely agree with the interpretation. I think that John went through it just like it is in the regs, meaning if it's not on the USGS, which it's not, and if it's the next criteria is the appropriate contributing watershed, and then the third, the stratified drift. So yeah, no, I think everything that John said is accurate, how you would go through the steps. The only difference is that there's a possibility. So the dam report for the spillway at Crystal Lake says the drainage area is 0.89, not that that's all that different than the 0.87. But after speaking with Bill, the only concern is similar to how the engineering department looked at the watershed for that North Ave project. And what they ended up doing was looking at whether or not any of the drainage pipes added some contributing area that wouldn't have shown on the plan, on the, like the mass mapper. So Bill, I talked to Bill about that. That would be the only thing that would potentially change, which may or may not trigger the change in the watershed area. I don't know that. Those drainage pipes, Bill has looked at the ones in Wakefield, but we'd have to contact Stoneham to see if they have any drainage that crosses over into the boundary to add into contributing watershed. But other than that, I think John went through it, and that's the method that you would follow.
And by Bill, you mean Bill Renault?
Yes, I do.
And when you say drainage pipes, Rebecca, these are pipes that feed into Crystal Lake?
No, so what it is sometimes they collect drainage or pipe streams. So this piece of little bit of water that you see here, that is the surface water, is the remnants actually of a stream. The old USGS, and certainly not current, showed that there was a stream that exited Crystal Lake, met up with what we call the Wakefield Brook, and then continued on its way. That has long since been put in pipes. So I think like all of that pipe system is a pipe, the remnants of a pipe stream. So similar to that kind of situation is these streams and drainage areas get put in pipes and long since forgotten, and they can crisscross. And what can happen is they can bring in water from one watershed to the other. The guys in the engineering department figured all that out by looking at for a different project. And so it ended up changing. So when this project came along, I just asked if they would look into it and do that same type of analysis, whether or not that was the same situation from here, or maybe it's not. I actually don't know the answer. So they said they would do that, and I just don't have that information yet. But that's not something that you would be able to tell by delineating the watershed according to like Mass Mapper, like when they do that type of watershed delineation on there. I think that was part of the NOI.
Well, that's in process through engineering right now.
I'm sorry, say again?
That's in process. That analysis is in process through Bill right now.
Well, we've talked about it, and I've said that we need to do it. It's sort of, we have to contact Stoneham, whether that's myself or whether that's Bill. Neither one of us were sure who to contact at this point, so we're working on it. But I am talking to him about it.
Thank you.
John, is there any boarding land subject to flooding on this site?
No, there's not. I do want to bring up one other thing, just in terms of moving forward and the process. I'd say we have a little bit of time on this. We're supposed to meet with the zoning board of appeals last Wednesday. I tried to line it up so that we went and saw them first before we came to see you, but they had some technical issues and did not have the public hearing last week. So we haven't actually met with them yet and gone through the, at least had their initial presentation with them. So I'd like to at least get their input on this project going forward. So I think we have some time if we need to deal with engineering. I know there was some comments in terms of the drainage that came from the engineering department. So we're going to be meeting with them and discussing that with them.
And you don't have a file number anyways, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Do you have any detail on that treatment chamber? That Barracuda?
Yeah, it should be, there's on one of the detail sheets.
There it is.
Yeah, so this is the Barracuda here.
Okay.
And the thing that makes it a little different is these fins that keeps, basically essentially keeps the sediment from kind of resuspending and potentially going out the outlet. Other than that, it's very similar to a storm tech. I'm sorry, storm scepter.
Okay. Thank you. And you have a O&M plan to maintain that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
It should be part of, it was submitted as part of, with the stormwater report.
Okay. Any more questions from the commission at this point? Any questions from the public regarding this project? All right, we're going to continue. We don't have a file number anyway, so we need to continue. And when will you be presenting this, John, to the ZBA?
I believe it's January 11th. So I think it probably makes more sense to continue. You guys meet on the 3rd.
Yes,
Yeah, maybe the second meeting in January.
sure.
No, we can't do it the second.
Maybe the 17th, right?
Why can't we do it on the 17th, Jim?
Because I think we're going out till
No,
supper.
that's the
aren't we?
24th.
Oh, that's the 24th. Okay. Sorry.
All right, so we'll continue to January 17th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. All right. All right, next up, we have DEP 313120 to Angem Lane. Is the applicant here?
Libby's here and so is the applicant, looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, we are here.
Good evening, all.
Hello.
So I am Elizabeth Wallace of Hayes Engineering. I have submitted a wetlands mitigation plan to the commission. And if I may share my screen, I can go over it briefly with you.
Please do.
All right, if you can see this.
Yes.
So by now you all are very familiar with this. This is the red line is the edge of the existing yard. And the green line is the edge of the 1989 wetland line. The white dotted line is the existing shed. And our proposal is to construct a mitigation wetland shown here in yellow dashed line. This wetland, it will be 1,258 square feet total, with 1,078 square feet of restoration and 180 square feet of replication. The restoration is the area below the wetland line, and 180 square feet replication will be above the square line. So this is the replication area, and everything else will be restoration. So we have a proposed silt fence, the edge of new fill. Everything else will remain where it is. The shed will be moved outside of the existing fence along Holland Road. As you can see, this little rectangle here at Holland Road. Our proposal is to plant a number of shrubs and a wetland mix inside the constructed wetland. Here we have 3 red maples sort of along the edge of the existing woods. Button bushes along the wettest part. This is the ponded wetland area along that proposed 42-foot line. The green and blue are silky dogwoods, and there are 8 of those. We have also silky dogwood, 8 of those. Sweet pepper bush, we have 6. These are these little star-shaped ones. And the entire area will be covered with a roadside matrix wetland mix, which is basically a mixture of grasses, sedges, a number of shrubs. They have seeds that are from shrubs, and wildflowers. So to orient you, this is kind of hanging out in space here. This is the wetland, above the wetland. This is, to the left is the proposed edge of grass, the lawn area, and the house is over by the legend here. To the bottom, we have this edge of the proposed wetland right out to the edge of that sloped landscaping. This is Angem along here, and this is the edge of woods. This area is where the shed was to be moved over. So this area will be cleaned up and excavated. The idea is to come in and take out areas of existing grass, loam, fill, and whatever else is in here. We'll take out the existing stones that are along the wet area here, and relocate them along the new edge of lawn, just to make a little barrier. So that's about the idea. There will be a dumpster at the end of the driveway. This is the driveway. We'll place a dumpster at the end of the driveway. There'll be a machine that goes in there, pulls out the material, places it in the dumpster, and that'll be trucked off when the dumpster is full. The shed will, the basic process will be to first move the shed over to its new spot. That means placing new gravel, a new gravel pad, and preparing the area and transporting the shed over towards Holland Road and into its new place. Then the old gravel pad will be removed and placed somewhere else on the property. The stone wall will be demolished. The stones retained for reuse. We'll put in that erosion control to protect the wetland areas. The machine then will pull back the old soil down to what looks like native soil or wet soil. The contractor will use the elevation of the woods and the existing wetland as sort of a guidance as to how deep to go. We'll use those as references and hopefully can establish a similar elevation. So the water will come in and make this a nice wet area for the wetland species to grow. Along with this 2-page plan, I also wrote up a construction sequence to go along with it. So basically, the first thing would be to stake out the approximate locations of proposed wetland corners. We don't have a surveyed plan of this, so it will be sort of a guess as to the extent of this wetland area. We can basically measure from the shed and make a guesstimate where the proposed wetland corners are. So after we position the wetland corners, we install temporary erosion controls along the perimeter. Once everything is in place, we're going to schedule a pre-construction meeting with the Conservation Commission, the property owner, contractor, and the wetland consultant to review the erosion controls and approve the actual extent of construction. After that, the gravel pad will be installed at the new shed location. The existing shed structure will be removed and transported to the new location off of Holland Street. A dumpster type waste container will be installed at the end of the driveway or a similar area. The former shed gravel pad and other piles nearby will be pulled out of there and stored on the property for future use. If you recall, there were grass clippings and brush piles right at the edge of the woods, and we'll clean that out and place in the waste container. So the next one is to remove existing mulch and plants from existing planted strip adjacent to the field stone retaining wall. And the mulch and plants will be placed elsewhere on the property for replanting. My thought is to replant those within the mitigation wetland. They are proper for that area. But that's up to the new owner, what he wants to do with the existing plants. The retaining wall stones in the area of the new wetland will be removed and piled in a location up gradient of the proposed wetland for reuse in establishing a border along the slope of the remaining extent of fill. The machine will come and remove the loam and fill within the extent of the proposed wetland to the depth of presumed natural wetland material, and also using adjacent wetland elevations as a reference. The excavated soil material will be placed in the waste container for disposal. Then a layer of organically rich topsoil will be spread on the bottom of the wetland. And plantings will be installed in the wetland. Once everything is done, the whole thing will be mulched with chopped straw or other approved mulch to conserve soil moisture and protect the seeds. The reserved wall stones will be placed to create a new low border wall along the edge of fill. And if required by the Conservation Commission, a post and rail or other such fence will be installed up gradient of the new stone wall and along the remaining edge of backyard as a permanent barrier, possibly with conservation signage. Once everything is done, any tracking or rutting will be repaired and reseeded so that the grass will regrow and have a restored lawn area. So once everything is done to that point, it's time to move the machines, tools, and waste containers off site, and a post-construction meeting with the Conservation Commission will be scheduled for inspection of the completed work. Erosion control fencing will be removed upon approval by the conservation agent. And any required post-construction documentation will be submitted. So that pretty much summarizes our thoughts on that matter. Just for information, this is the seed mix that we're proposing to use, the New England roadside matrix mix, wet meadow style mix. As you can see, most of the species are FAC or wetter. We have wetland grasses, silky dogwood seeds, sedges, blue flag, milkweeds, and other type flowers. And hopefully that will give us a nice thick wetland vegetation. I'm happy to answer any questions you'd like.
Libby, can I ask you, so you said there's no survey done. So how are you going to measure? I know you were talking about, how do you measure where this is going, I guess, and where the edge of the 1989 wetland flag line was on the, in the field out there.
Right. No, my thought is to use the shed as a reference point. And then we can measure from, it's basically at the edge of the woods. The shed is basically at the edge, and this is the cleared area. For those of you who were on the site visit in June, where the ducks came up, we'll start about there and measure about 42 feet along the field stone wall. the other sides will be roughly measured as well. The area along the slope landscaping will start basically in line with the shed and go about 27 feet toward the house. And hopefully the edge of lawn will measure out at about 36 feet.
And
So-
then from there, you talked about if we would, if it was our desire, of putting some kind of post and beam fence along the edge of, I guess it'd be along the edge of the 1989 wetland line, yeah? Is that what you're proposing?
No, what I thought was along the new edge.
Okay,
of
not along the green line.
Right, I mean, I
We'll have the
suppose
stone wall there, right?
and along the edge of remaining yard, along the fill, and then come up along the new edge of wetland.
So the idea is that you'd be able to use the area between the green and the red, basically,
Correct,
except for the area that you're working on.
correct, except for the area enclosed by the yellow striped line here. That would be out of bounds for any more work. But we'd leave a usable yard. We'd have the yard shed outside the fence. So everything would be retained around the house.
And I'm sorry, you said the proposed edge of new wetland, that's where again, perhaps the fence would be.
Yes,
Okay,
that's my thought, yes.
thank you.
There's a note that says fence or other permanent barrier.
Right,
So
right.
you're proposing a fence then? Is that clear?
Well, wait a minute, aren't you putting these stones back in place?
My thought was to put stones, along the new edge of wetland there.
And that would delineate. the two.
What I said, if you guys want a fence also, we could do that.
I'm not in favor of the fences. They rot out and they just fall apart. And I mean, I think the stone wall, placing the stones there would be much easier deterrent than, than doing the fence. The fence is gonna fall down after a few years.
Yeah, and it'll blend in better also with the existing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I envision is the stone wall along the red line here would be
Yeah.
extended
Reused out over
there,
on that side.
along the new edge of lawn.
Yeah.
So,
And you could get more stone if you needed to, if you ran out, because I don't think there's stone along that, behind the shed, right? There wasn't a stone wall there.
no, it's
So you're
along-
probably gonna need some more stones to carry that down those two sides. You know what I'm saying, Libby, where you wanna,
I'm sorry, say it again.
you're probably gonna have to get some additional stone to do the delineation in stone. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you have enough stone by just what you're gonna take out.
If you want to go around the whole thing, you're saying, Jim. I mean, the
Well, on
other,
the backside, you wouldn't go there.
Yeah, the
That's
two
a
sides.
wetland on the
The
back.
left and the front.
right.
Just in the
side,
front,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, my thought was to start perpendicular to the driveway and go down to the connect up into the existing
Oh, okay.
remaining stone wall.
That makes sense.
You're probably right that more stone is needed, but we'll see.
Okay.
I don't really know how much stone is there.
I guess it doesn't matter as long as we both all agree on where the stone's gonna be placed.
And
Yeah,
I'm
so-
sorry, are you saying you're removing the stone at the stone at the red line right now?
Just where it interferes with the proposed layout, right? Where the yellow
Right.
line is.
The idea is to connect this excavated area smooth it out into the existing wetland, so you don't have any berm or anything.
Okay,
Blended,
That means
blended in.
removing that stone wall. If you'd like, I have some photographs and you can take a look at
yeah, that'd be great.
the existing conditions out there. I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a moment and pull up that. So bear with me for a moment. Pardon. Okay, so sorry for that delay. I'm gonna try that now. Let's see. All right, so here's a view towards the shed. And the plantings that we're going to relocate. So the edge of our wetland is going to be approximately just to the back of this existing trunk here. So we're going to take this out, remove these and the stone wall that's in back of it at the moment, holding back this little ponded area.
Mhm.
So that'll give you a little idea. And for those of you who were out at the site, you'll remember that there's a bunch of clippings right along the edge of the woods here.
Mhm.
And we'll clean that out. This is the clippings here in the back of the shed. This is the clearing where the ducks came up, and this is about approximate beginning of the wetland. The wetland will come right up at the edge of the woods and extend down to the curve in the stone wall. Let's see what else. As you see here, the stone wall comes along here, and here's the duck area and the shed.
I don't see a pointer anywhere.
So we'll just take out the stones as best as we can and pile them somewhere in the neighborhood of the driveway. So
Libby,
again,
the same picture is being shown. Did you expect to see a different picture? It still shows to the side of the shed. Is that,
my apology.
that's okay.
Yeah. Let's see, I gotta get that back. All right,
Great.
here we
That's a
go.
good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Here we go. So this is the shed, and this is where the ducks came up, and a row of plantings that we're going to take out and reserve for future planting. The stone wall at the edge of the wetland there, so. Yeah, the wetland itself is going to be edged approximately right there. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of our work area. So all of this will be removed, brought down to the approximate elevation of the existing wetland.
Mhm. Okay. So Libby, will you be supervising this work?
If I'm asked to,
Okay,
I can do that.
because you're so, you know the plan better than anyone.
We'll take this out. So hopefully we can find a contractor that's very knowledgeable about constructing wetlands and
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
we can all work together to make this work.
Okay,
Any questions from the commission?
I just want to say, I think Libby's done a great job. This has been a long process.
Yeah, it looks like
I
it's a
agree.
good compromise.
So with the idea to be now to draft an enforcement order that kind of says that memorializes again Libby's plan, the
Yeah,
plan itself together with the construction schedule,
yeah,
and talk about and have that be the enforcement. I mean, we'll have to work on the wording of it, but have
Right.
that be the enforcement order.
yes. I believe that's what we were intending.
Is the commission in favor, of this plan as presented? Any discussion or comments?
Mm,
I don't have any comments.
I do not.
It makes sense.
I think it's a great plan. I think this is a good compromise.
All right, so I guess the
Should we take a motion
procedural-
to issue that enforcement order, Bob?
yeah, the procedural thing would be to vote on issuing an enforcement order using this plan as the guidance. So somebody like to make,
I'll make that motion.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Jimmy,
Yes,
Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote yes.
okay.
All right, so next step is to draft the enforcement order.
I do want to confirm that after completion of this enforcement order, there will be two certificate of compliance, one for my own individual property and the other for a partial release from the subdivision. Is that something that I'm agreeing to, or we are agreeing to?
I think you're just agreeing to, well, this is just an enforcement order to put something back the way it was supposed to be. I don't know if it's got anything to do with what you're talking about.
Tim, you might, I think I'm gonna
I
need your
can't
help
see it
here. 'cause
anyways.
there-
Folks should be able to see me. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
So I think if you go back to the very first meeting I was at, there was two orders of conditions that kind of prompted this entire scenario, which prompted prompted Rebecca to take a deep dive on it. We realized that a partial certificate could not be issued because the land had been filled in. So we had discussed obtaining those partial releases at some point as they apply to this particular lot. I don't think we ever really got to a point where the commission was comfortable with when those certificates would be issued. I think you struggled with the fact that they could not be issued because the land had been filled in. So it didn't really follow the original order of conditions. And I don't think we really ended up with a robust discussion on how to get out from underneath those orders of conditions that were issued in the 80s and 90s. We did discuss some ways to try to get out from underneath it, but I think the board at that point was more concerned with the enforcement order and getting the original actions corrected to try to bring it into some semblance of compliance with the original order. So I think the board's going to have to decide at some point, can you issue a partial certificate, and when would that occur? Would it occur after the enforcement order is fulfilled or before the enforcement order is fulfilled? Or would there be some other precedent that would prompt the board to issue those?
I guess my thought here, and certainly anybody else chime in, but after the work is completed, a certificate of compliance on the lot would be forthcoming.
Can I interrupt for a second? All I have in front of me is, it says Zoom. I don't have any picture anymore. Is there?
No, there's nothing being shared right now.
It's just
Oh.
everyone's picture, Jim.
I want to see everyone. I don't even know who I'm
No,
talking to.
It must be just on your, there must be a thing to do on your screen, Jim.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you have to show participants.
Look at the view. Is there something that says view in the upper right-hand corner, Jim?
Yeah, one.
So press on that, see if that does anything.
All right, I'll figure it out. Nothing yet. All right, I don't need it.
Yeah, Bob, I would agree. I think that would have to do with the lot itself. I don't know anything about what the subdivision is.
Just a reminder of the whole history. The reason why this property was in compliance with in full compliance with the Wetland Protection Act in 1995, but it was not issued a certificate of compliance because of the subdivision was not in compliance. And then there was a term that put into the order of conditions for my individual property, because both the subdivision and my property was developed by the same developer. So the town was trying to hold him responsible. But because of the town failed to swap the land, leading to the failure of a development of the subdivision, and subsequently the incompliance of the subdivision to Wetland Protection Act, and then leads to the incompliance, or leads to the situation where my property does not have a certificate of compliance.
Well, we'd have to investigate whether or not that order of conditions for, again, the subdivision, whether has been complied with.
Yeah, if you recall, I think Rebecca reached out to the developer. I think she had sent a letter maybe back in October and November. If Rebecca's still on, she may recall. And we're waiting for him to get back to her.
Is that right, Rebecca?
Yep, I'm still on. And yes, that is how I remember how they both just described it. There was the original subdivision order of conditions that included a land swap. And then 1995, as he was saying, when he
Right.
applied for, or the old owner applied for the individual lot, they weren't able to get it because there was a condition for the individual lot that stipulated they needed the certificate of compliance for the subdivision first before they would do the individual lot. So all of that sounds Right. I did also issue a letter to the developer trying to close out the subdivision. I have not heard anything since. So we'll have to figure out how to tackle that. I don't really know the answer off the top of my head. What's the best way to tackle that? Maybe I'll reach out to Tom Mullen, figure out what the best way to close that out is in the event that we're unable to get that subdivision closed out properly.
Yeah, this is an issue that are concerning my whole community, because all the 23 lots here, they're, I don't know what that means to individual lots, but are not in compliance, within the community. We just had a meeting, and I think we're gonna have to apply for partial release, for every single one of us, So we need to figure out how to deal with this situation, because it has been hanging there for 30 something years. Nobody ever brought this up.
Okay,
All right, so once the work is complete, you can certainly apply for an order of conditions, certificate of compliance, and that would potentially clear up the lot.
I know that, but I'm more concerned with the partial release from the subdivision,
Right,
'cause-
well, Rebecca just answered your question, that she has to do, we have to do further research on that. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as simple as I think, Henry, is the board just issuing two parcels. There's gotta be a sequence, and the sequence has to be appropriate to get the board to where they need to be. And then in regard to your lot specifically, that will be our primary focus in regard to both orders of conditions. We'll be dealing with your lot. We're not representing the subdivision, we're representing you. So I think we have a course of action here with the enforcement order, completion of work. We'll come back, request the partial releases, and in the meantime, Rebecca can continue to pursue the previous developer and then speak with Attorney Mullen and the best way to approach this and get it resolved. I think resolution, probably won't be had until the summertime at this point when the work's complete.
yeah, it's one thing we didn't talk about. Is there a sequence for this work? When is it gonna start and when it's gonna end? That type of thing? I didn't think. of
in
that.
Libby's narrative, she said in the spring and summer of 2023.
Okay,
So by the end of the summer, it should be done.
okay.
I think so, yeah.
All right, we might want to put some type of time limit on this as.
No, we will.
Yeah, okay. All right,
All right, so we'll work on that enforcement order, and that's it for 2 Angel Lane for tonight then. All right, well, thank you for joining, and we're gonna move on to our next topic on the agenda.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Libby.
All right, I do want to say that the hearing for DEP 313322 Millbrook Lane condos has been continued. We don't have a date as of now to when. That being said, we'll move to our next item, which is the Article 97 land discussion, Hemlock Road, Farm Street, and Ballister, I think it was.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete Dion, Michael McCarthy, representing the Light Department. Pete Dion is with us, as is John Ogren, I believe. And what we'd like to do is kind of just briefly update the board, please put on the record the discussions relative to the what's happened since the last hearing. We are, and give the board that information for the record, and then if they have a productive discussion. With that, I defer to Pete or Dave Paulson, the MLD engineer, to give the board that update, or the commission that update.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I think one of the things we had a very productive meeting over the weekend, I thought, on visiting the various sites. At the last meeting, one of the things that was asked of us was to look for a place where we could potentially restore canopy. So I think we did that. But why don't we'll just go through the I think we visited the site, obviously, that we're all aware of, which is the 1 acre on Hemlock Road. That would be the site of the energy park, but what we were asked to do is look at what we were gonna do to offset that. So Dave, can you share the screen?
Yep. Okay. Should be able to see it.
Yeah.
So this is
So
the,
there's three portions, 3 parcels that we are talking about now for the offset. The first, and we walked on Saturday, was the area, I mean, on Sunday, was the area behind the existing BB stump station off of Farm Street. We entered that area off of Castle Clare. We've identified approximately 2.5 acres, including a 25-foot buffer up the side of the property, and then almost 2 full acres at the top. That would be deeded over, or however formal process would need to be done to protect it from ever being built on. So that was part 1 of the solution. And again, I want to stress that it's a combined solution. And so one of the things that's important about this 2.5 acres is that it is in an area deemed by the Massachusetts as an area of critical environmental concern. So the fact that that does have significant value in terms of resource to protect that portion of the land. It would be transferred to the town and to remain undeveloped. The next piece was what we also visited. Oh, I'm sorry. The next piece was what we also visited on Saturday, which was Burns Park. It's an existing substation on Ballister. We've retired the 4 kV substation, and what we're proposing is to turn that industrial use into a green space. We have a preliminary design drawing that we shared that day that includes plantings, management, water management, and a quiet sitting area in the middle. This substation is currently in the midst of several condominiums and apartments. And we feel it would be a strong addition to the area as a whole by converting it from an industrial use to a passive recreational use. In addition, the third item was that we were asked to look at a place where we could possibly restore canopy. We looked at many parcels that are owned by the town, and we came up with the one that we think is the best fit right now. That we couldn't find anything else that would have an appropriate fit. But the town several years ago bought a piece of land between Maple Way Playground and Arundel Ave. That piece of land was at the time had a house on it and a yard, and it was being considered to potentially be developed into soccer fields. Priorities changed. There were issues with access on Arundel, and there was so the land has been town-owned land since then, and basically it has a single walking path that works its way through it. But a portion of that land, approximately 38,000 square feet, it was cleared because it was part of an existing property back then, and it has not been replanted. So we felt that we could restore that land and tie it into the greater forest that's already there. And so that's the third piece of the potential solution. So with that, I think we wanted to hear your feedback, and I think we've worked very hard to hear your concerns and try to answer them.
Hey, question on that parcel. So see that it abuts Maple Way, but is there any other way into that lot other than Maple Way for the public?
Well, Maple Way is a public parking lot, and it has a path that's been built through that property right now. There's an existing stone dust path that goes through that land.
You had mentioned though it was connected to Arundel, or is it?
Yeah, so Arundel has a paper road that continues beyond where it physically exists right now, but it's not developed, and it presented an access issue. From my understanding, I guess this was in the early 2000s when this was being evaluated as a potential for soccer fields, that access became the issue in terms of driving in there. And so, and they didn't want to have it be a parking lot, so it's kind of blocked off from the Arundel side from what we can see in terms of an access way, but there's a stone dust footpath that goes through a good portion of the area.
Okay,
So if you go in, you walk into the woods, but to your left, you can see the white area right now was, you know, it was obviously cleared many years ago. It was probably, you know, the front yard to the house that was originally there, or I'm not really sure what it is, but it's definitely, you know, a field area as opposed to part of the wooded area. And again, one of the things we heard was that you'd like to restore canopy. So that's a place where we could potentially do some of that.
And Pete, there's as we found, there's the walking path that was made by the town, and there's also quite a few beaten paths. People are, you know, have used it to walk around in there that we followed as well.
Well, I think I thought it looks like a great setup between the three properties. The thing I am concerned about is, you know, our open space plan talks about, is the plan that we're trying to go by. And in that plan, we had done surveys in the town, and the result of the survey said that the townspeople wanted more open space. So that's why we're always pushing for open space. But the one thing that we would have to somehow fix is that we would want to make sure that the land could not be used for any other purpose. Because, I mean, if they decided to do something else with it later down the road, of course, we wouldn't, you know, we're back to zero, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't know how we would do that, whether it's a conservation restriction, or I don't know the mechanics of that. Maybe Rebecca has to talk to Tom Mullen, and Mike, talk to you too, to see how that we could do that for all three of the parcels.
We can do that, Jim. I preliminarily, ran this by Mr. Mayo, who had no objection to it. I did not discuss, not that, we have to vet it a little further, but we didn't discuss what you're raising now as an issue, but that's something certainly I can talk to Attorney Mullen and Mr. Mayo about.
Yeah.
And in conjunction with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, like especially on the baluster lot, what would prevent that from being turned into, I don't know, parking or?
Well, it's still in the name of the light department, so it'd have to be transferred, I would think.
Yeah, we would agree to put whatever restriction, conservation or open space restriction, even, making an Article 97 lot, whatever you might want to.
And transfer it out of the light department.
Yep.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yep.
I think our only request is that it would be, when we build the park, that it would be called the Burns Park. We retired a substation named after Mr. Burns, and that one of the things that's important to the department is that we maintain that in his honor. So if we were gonna build the park, that it would be named the Burns Park.
And the Burns Luciani Park would be?
No, I think that's totally appropriate. I think that's a great idea. Rebecca, you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I think that was probably my biggest concern. I would also like to note that I also looked for parcels in order to find a town property where we could add some trees, and I found it very challenging. So I never came up with this one. So I'm glad they found it, because I was coming up with nothing. I talked to Dennis Fazio. I mean, I've been trying to browse around and I didn't find anything great. So again, I'm happy that they found that Arundel, because I didn't see that. My only concern was basically what you guys touched upon, which was in the event that you guys agree to sort of take this as an equal swap, what's to prevent them from changing these, if it's not under the care and custody of the commission, and which means it would be for passive recreation or for like conservation. But if it's not like under their care and custody, then I don't see, if it's just under the selectmen, they could theoretically just go in and take down all those trees, and therefore you wouldn't have gained anything. So You guys already touched on that, and if we can find a way to ensure that it, or to transfer it, then I think that probably meets all the concerns I had.
Just out of curiosity, will the energy park land would that be deeded from the town to the light department?
No, we've asked for a perpetual easement, not a transfer.
It's essentially the same thing
okay.
though. Right.
Okay. I just wanted to understand. So I just think that you guys obviously want something that's permanent, as do we. So I
Right.
just wanted to make sure that we're on sort of an equal footing. And can I ask we have these three layers, and I know that that's something that was brought up, that some of the people on the in the audience had brought up before, just going through we have the amendment to the Constitution, which really just requires a supermajority vote. And then we have administrative guidelines that have been, I guess, relied upon for years. And now we have a statute that's been enacted. And even though the statute isn't effective until when, next February?
Mid-February.
You say mid-February. It seems to me that I guess what I would want to understand is whether, I want to have a high degree of confidence that what we're doing would comply with the statute as if the statute was in effect. I mean, because it seems to me that otherwise I would, I just want to make sure that we as a commission feel comfortable that we go through that statute carefully and make sure that we're getting that it meets the statute. I don't think that, or to put it differently, I think that I'm not comfortable we're doing our duty as a commission saying that the legislature came up with a detailed set of rules and we don't comply with those rules, but because they're not in effect. And I also think it would be, it might give everyone a sense of unease that we would get a supermajority of vote with a proposal that doesn't even meet that doesn't meet requirements that the legislature itself has deemed to be best practices. So I just want to say that I would put it differently. I'm not comfortable proceeding unless we're comfortable, just on the basis that this statute isn't officially in effect yet. And I think we should look at the statute and make sure that we are completely comfortable that this works.
So I guess I would answer that a couple different ways, Peter. One is that I think as Therese pointed out, there's a 90-day period post enactment until the statute becomes effective. There's also a provision in the statute that provides that the Secretary of the OEA will develop regulations within a 8-month period. I know that the trustees of the reservations, because I've done a little research on it, and as you know, they are custodians of a great deal of property across the state, take the position, and I have their position here, that the statute does not take effect for 18 months. And I quote, taking effect 18 months after passage, the PLPA will strengthen existing safeguards, and it goes on. That's from the trustees. I could screen share, but that's what it says. Nonetheless, the statute.
What's the basis for 18 months as opposed to 90 days?
I think it's. I think, Teresa, I can't speak for the trustees of reservation, but I think it's because
You're talking about what they propose, so.
No, I'm talking about what they say.
Yeah.
The trustees. I'm just saying that there's a potential issue, and I think, Teresa, it's the until the regulations come into effect that tracks the same timeline on the reservations. But nonetheless, so I raised that because I think that may be an issue, but it's not an attempt to not to comply with the statute and not to satisfy you folks as well. But statute is actually pretty brief. I think the meat and potatoes will be in the regulations, Peter, in terms of how they evolve and what the details are. But the statute itself is fairly straightforward, and certainly take your time, satisfy yourself as to it, and I'll be happy to work in any in any way I can to help you. But it talks about the requirements, and essentially it talks a lot about the Secretary of EOEA making recommendations to the legislature based on compliance. So it boils down to, does the Secretary of EOEA think that this is a fair trade? And one of the criteria is that it has to be an equal trade in terms of monetary and resource value. So they'll have to be ultimately, if this is applicable to the land, some evidence of that, as well as the alternatives analysis presented to the legislature. But I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on state action. And I don't think there's any way for us on the local level to say, this is going to satisfy the state or it's not. And we have to get there in order to find out. But certainly, I mean, we're happy to talk about the statute, at any point.
But it wouldn't comply with the statute though, Michael. If you look at the statute, you have to go through these things that you haven't met, but we understand that the statute doesn't apply it. Not, but you wouldn't meet the qualification, the requirements of the statute.
Well, I don't think I agree with that, but I do agree that the statute is not applicable at this point. So it's a move.
Okay.
You raise an interesting point too, Mike, about just monetary value. I mean, I would argue that the piece of land that's being taken here for the energy park is probably as valuable as any land in all of Wakefield. I mean, we don't get the degree of concern. We don't get the degree of concern, about any other, you'd see if we have 33 participants on this call. I mean, this is land that people care absolutely deeply about. It abuts a public way. It's very prominent, right in the center of what is truly a jewel of Wakefield. And all I want to say is that that is something that it's not lost on me. I think it's incredibly valuable. And I look at the land off Farm Street. I bet if you offered it for sale, someone wouldn't pay $2,000 for that 2,000 acres. Just interesting when you rent your words, like monetary value. That is in the statute too. That is in the statute. And then we have a 8,000 square foot pocket park, which is, kind of, again, sort of something that it's not a building lot. It's not it doesn't have a lot of significant value. I'm not sure about the piece that the town owns that we would just be taking town-owned land and foresting it. The part near Maple Way, I don't know that, but I just want to put it out there I wonder what all of that land in back of for example, in back of Farm Street. I just don't even know. I don't know if it has any significant market value. It has conservation value, but you mentioned, but monetary value was absolutely one of the things in the statute, and you yourself said it's a relevant consideration. We haven't talked about that.
But we do agree that the statute is not applicable at this point. But if we were to argue under the four corners of the statute, we wouldn't be before the conservation. We wouldn't be before you as the Conservation Commission, because that's not part of the statute. But though those things are, I guess not directly applicable, because again, it's not effective yet. But ultimately, those are issues for the state to decide if it were in fact applicable. I think under the current policy, the issue is essentially the balance of, and I think it's important to remember here too, the purpose of the use, and this is under the statute as well. The Secretary of EOEA can determine that the current use or the proposed use has significant, value. And it's important to remember that we're not trying to build a building there. We're trying to build a facility for the purposes of meeting the net zero carbon emission goal. And it's a pro-environment proposal. We're trying very hard to do that. And it's not something that will, that doesn't bring that kind of benefit. And we ask you to kind of weigh that into your deliberations.
Bob, we have a comment from the public. I don't know if you're ready to.
Yeah, not yet, but actually, this isn't even a public hearing. It's a discussion. But I do want to make sure that commission's concerns and questions are answered. Could we go back to the presentation with the first parcel at the BB substation? Please. Thank you. So we did visit that site. We did walk the 25-foot swath, yeah, along the side there. It is, in some cases, very steep and a lot of changes in elevation and outcroppings. It is very difficult to get to the top from Farm Street if somebody were in fact trying to do that. It does create a buffer between that neighborhood though and the substation area, which, you know, does have value. But if it's something that people wanted to actually get to, it is fairly difficult to get there. Is there any option on the other side of that parcel? Yeah, along that edge?
Yeah, so I think John looked into this and we did talk about that, but I think we'd be happy to identify that swath. The problem is the road in Saugus is a private way. It's not a public road. John checked into that on Monday. So that does present a little bit of a challenge.
Okay. That is actually the town line right there. The property line is the town line.
Pretty much, yep.
Does that property taken as a whole, everything in back of the substation, does it really have any significant fair market value? I mean, really, does it?
It could definitely be a solar farm.
But Peter, would you be able to get enough panels in there to make it worthwhile?
Oh,
Solar farms have hundreds of panels.
Okay, well, it's 12 acres.
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know.
Oh yeah, 12 acres would be quite a solar farm. Yeah. Again, it was evaluated about 5 years ago, but we pushed that off. But there's definitely value on that hill if we were ever to do.
I mean, for us, Peter, that's like committing suicide to.
I don't disagree, and that's why we're going to protect. I can't speak for any boards down the road, but I can say that we're willing to protect a portion of that land forever. So,
yeah, I mean, it is rough terrain. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, 10 years from now, maybe solar farms will be obsolete. We'll be doing something else.
Again, that's why we haven't moved forward with it. And the biggest issue raised by the board at the time was that we don't want to clear all those trees. I don't think, but I do think that if we partner with a solar developer, that it would be a valuable piece of land for a solar farm. But again, we don't want to do that right now. So I don't think that, but it definitely would have value.
Well, I mean, okay.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the greatest value with what's being presented there is just to create a buffer for the neighbors, that nothing will happen, in back of their backyards, essentially, which is a value. But as far as usable or even getting to it, it's extremely difficult.
I mean, whatever we do, Peter, I mean, we would have to make sure that we secure some interest in the property that we're not going to lose, that we can use this property, as passive areas for the town.
Jim, what are you talking about? The parcel they wanted?
I'm talking about this park, the one that he's got up on the screen now.
The
over,
2.5.
Farm Street.
Yeah, they already agreed to that.
Huh?
They already agreed to that.
They agreed to 25 feet. I'm thinking that we really should have more.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
25-foot strip or.
So more than the 25 feet. Okay.
I mean, but you know, like, I understand what Peter's saying. They want to have the potential to put a
just-
solar farm in, but
I just say that 1 acre that is, that this land is just not anywhere near the value of,
You're saying this is
that
not the equivalent, it's not a
it's
fast
so,
farm.
it's so not equivalent. That's all I'm saying. It's just not. I mean, maybe it is from environmental, but you're talking about something that is, a jewel of this town. That an acre of land right in the, a jewel versus this remote piece that, because we'll get just a relatively small piece that's so difficult and inaccessible that it would be, that while it would be good for the environment, there's not going to be any enjoyment. I mean, no one's going to, it's just, it just has no, so. All I'm trying to
Again,
do
I
is-
think you're
is-
trying to look at the proposal that's got 3 parts and try to put it all on that piece of land. I think what
Yeah,
we're
and
saying
that's
is
true.
that from a
Mhm.
conservation perspective, we're gonna preserve 2.5 acres. From an enjoyment perspective, we have 2 other sites that we're talking about that creates value for the public.
okay. Hmm.
Yeah, converting the substation to a passive, recreation park makes sense, and it's in a great location. Being
And-
surrounded
And
by
that's
a lot of,
8,000, and that's 8,000 square feet.
just a quiet place, surrounded by a lot of apartments and condos.
Yeah, and that's right. And that has some local, but the land where the park is, where the energy park is something that is universal to the town. Everyone in town uses, the town, as a whole uses all I'm doing is pointing out just the qualitative aspect of it. And all I'm getting at is, I'm really kind of get at, Pete, the concept that 2 acres versus 1 acre, that we're getting that it's double. I just all I'm saying is that there's another way of looking at it that is quite the contrary. That's all. And
if all we were talking about, Peter, is the 2 acres, there'd be no argument perhaps, but with the other properties thrown in, the reforestation, assuming we can, get the
okay. And and one other thing, would we, if we did this agreement, we would, for the Ballister Street property, I mean, how would we do this to agree that this would be, that this would be handed over, after all, remediation had been done, environmental and do we have a high degree of confidence that this can be put into that this could be completely remediated so that the site, if taken by the town or by the Conservation Commission, is free of any environmental issues? I just don't know. I just want to make sure. That we're not, because I just want to make sure that I don't know whether the studies you've done are preliminary or whether you have detailed knowledge of what it's going to take and have a high degree of confidence that this can be that any necessary work can be done.
We do have a high degree of confidence. We've worked with an environmental consultant who's done samples through the site. And we do know that there is some remediation that needs to take place, but it can be definitely done. We have an estimate of $200,000 to remediate the site.
$200,000? Holy
Well,
mackerel.
don't forget, we have to prep the land. We also have to get rid of the foundation that's with that pad. So
Hmm. Wow.
that's a foundation that would have to be dealt with, that's part of preparing that site to become the park.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, Peter, did you get appraisals on these properties? Do you have that much information, or you really?
We haven't gotten appraisals.
Okay.
I'm not sure we have to do it, Jim. I don't think we have to do it. We're not under the statute.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but I guess I know I just, I guess I'll ask you guys this. Do you have a high degree of confidence that you're going to get a super majority opinion if the legislature knew that this would not, that this is unlikely to pass muster under the very statute that they've adopted, notwithstanding the late effective date? I don't know. I
do have a question, and I'm not sure the answer to it, but right now that land is only under discussion because it has a very specific use identified, which is putting it in this chapter 97 category. So if we're gonna value the acre, wouldn't it have to be valued under the terms of the fact that it could only be a playground? That's the only option for it. Versus, you know what I'm saying, versus the Burns land could be sold and developed, and the Wakefield, the Farm Street land could be sold and developed.
The other factor that would come into play is that this is not a subdivided parcel. This is a 1 acre of a 6 acre parcel, so it's not separately saleable. It's not subdivided, but again, I mean, we're not, it's not a monetary consideration of the statute. Peter, to your question in terms of confidence in the legislature, we do believe that we'll get it. We think we have a very novel, and we think this is relevant, a very novel green carbon reducing proposal. And we think we're proposing with the 3 parcels put together, something that the state will like. Add to that, we've got a pretty good legislative delegation that we're working with. We would not be putting all this time and effort in if we didn't believe we could get an approval.
One of the things that's important, and Dave just brought up this last slide, is, I think I've said it before, but the carbon footprint of the school on gas, heat, and without the energy park is significant versus the carbon footprint without the natural gas. And it's important to note that this yellow box that's currently the electric load, that has to be moved to net zero by 2050. So all you're really going to be left with by 2050 is the blue line. So it's a significant difference, and we're looking at a school or schools that will be 50-year schools.
Well, I think we're more concerned about the trees and the environment, and I know you are too with what you're proposing here, but it's just it seems to be a losing battle to try to save some of this land. I mean, once these trees are cut down, you're not going to get them back. It's going to take you 100 years to get those trees back. And when you see what's going to happen with the school, they've got 12.9 acres they're going to lay barren. I mean, it's going to be a drastic change to the whole environment of the area. It would be important to us too. I would take that Farm Street, a restriction on Farm Street over the other 2. I'd make that a priority if it came down to that. I would say, give us a restriction on, you put your station in, and give us a restriction on the rest of the property. I'd walk away with that.
As I said on Sunday, I think that it's excessive and it's not fair to the ratepayers. And I think that we have to draw a line somewhere. And I think 3 times what we're asking for is a significant, and we're more than happy to work with you. But I think that asking for 12 or 13 acres in exchange for 1 acre is excessive. Again, from the terms of the fact that the land we're giving is in a mass area of critical environmental concern, where the one that we're taking is not. The area at the Mapleway Park is also part of the mass area, critical environmental concern. I think those 2 things alone have significant value. And
as far as I'm concerned, though, as with the conservation point of view, those 2 parcels, the one that the one that you have to decontaminate or whatever you have to do there, I mean, that's work that you need to do anyways, because you don't want to have that contaminated soil there. It's not good for the town or for yourselves. As far as Maple Way goes, I mean, that's been there like that for 10 years. I don't know how long. It was done in 2000, right? So 20 years it's been sitting there. And nothing's happened. So I go back to Farm Street. I say Hemlock Road. I say that the land on the back of Hemlock Road is very critical to conservation, more so than the other two, even though the others are designated as ACEC. I mean, it's a big deal.
There are a couple of hands raised. I will remind the public that technically this is not a public hearing. It's a discussion. Are there questions? Christine, do you have a question?
I just wanted to share a little information that I gathered from EOEA this week. The person who is actually in charge of overseeing the rollout of the new Public Lands Preservation Act, Kurt Gartner, who said he's happy to talk to anyone on the Conservation Commission or anyone else. But I thought it was just important to share that he said that they plan on issuing interim guidance mid-January 2023 on what people should be doing before the new regulations are issued on the new law in the next year or so. So, and he also said that the Article 97 policy, which puts substance to what's in the Constitution, will remain in effect in this interim period, and that that's going to be updated to reflect some of the new language in the new law. But that's still in effect. The Article 97 policy, you can say that's just policy, but there is a paragraph on there that says if municipalities do not abide by that, that they can be subject to having grants withheld. And he said that they've done that for municipalities twice in the past. So it has some substance to it. So it's not just waiting a year for new regulations. There will be guidance that they're working on actively right now that will be issued in mid-January 2023 that will help interpret the new regulations and what should be done in the interim. So I thought I just would share that information.
Good information.
Yeah, thank you. Just for the record, Christine, address?
Yes, you want the
No, you're
email it? Oh, excuse me, Woodland Road, Woodland Road.
Thank you. There is another hand raised. Thomas?
Yes, thank you. Tom Betcher, 25 Wakefield Ave. I am one of the Gas and Light Commissioners. I'm also the liaison to the Environmental Sustainability Committee in town from Gas and Light as well. I just wanted to make a statement around the value. You know, I know that there's been a lot of discussion around the value of the energy park, both financially and environmentally is huge. From an environmental standpoint, we're building 2 new buildings that are going to be around for 50 plus years. And if they go fossil fuels, that I think that graph is extremely telling of the amount of carbon savings that the energy park will provide. The energy park also provides the ability for Gas and Light to put solar panels on both of the school's buildings. To give you a scale of those solar panels, one school's system of panels is equivalent to almost all of the residential solar that is installed in town today. We just have become a green community. It hasn't been officially announced. I think that we would miss a huge opportunity by not building the energy park on the this parcel of land. I understand that the Article 97 requires the transfer of land, and I think all 3 of those parcels plus the energy park in conjunction with all of that really move the needle on environmental concern. And then you have the financial benefits to the schools. So that's taxpayer savings. And then the financial benefits to the ratepayers of Wakefield. So I just wanted to make that statement for the commission to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so where are we at right now?
Do you guys want to go take a look at that, that cleared area on Arundel? Do you want to set a site visit for that?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah, we
valuable.
could do that.
Um, Looking at the calendar. This weekend's certainly not a good weekend. Any suggestions for a date for a site visit? Following weekend, it's actually New Year's Eve and New Year's Day.
What about
No,
January 2nd?
Oh, Monday?
Yep.
Fine with me.
Yeah, actually, that is a holiday for many of us. I
That's
could,
good.
I could do the second. Anybody else have a issue or could do the second?
That's something we could easily just do ourselves, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's not something that's public land. We don't, okay, good.
Right, just get right through Maple Way to get to it,
Yeah, so that'll be easy.
down by the farthest softball field from the parking lot.
Yeah. I
There's
do
a
want to look
stone,
at,
there's a stone dust path that goes right through there.
Yeah,
okay. But, okay, so the two parts of that is it would, one, the status would be changed from just owned by the town to permanently restricted by the town. And a commitment by the gas and light department to plant some trees on 3,800 square feet of that. I just want to make sure that I'm,
No, it's just under an acre, 38,000 square feet.
oh, I think you said 3,800 was going to be the part that didn't have,
No,
forestation. I'm sorry,
No.
38,000?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
all right, anybody want to pick a time on the second?
8:30.
You're getting closer.
Okay, 8:30. Can meet in Maple Way parking lot.
Okay.
Actually, there is another hand raised. Linda, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, Melrose. I just wanted to say the
You have
area,
you have an echo going on, Linda. It's very hard to hear you.
I apologize, I'm not sure why that is. Is it still there?
No, it's
That
better
sounds
now.
better.
The area of critical environmental concern, which is probably home to rare wildlife, having 2.5 acres up there at the top with a potential solar field below that in the future, it just makes no sense. If you're actually trying to do something for the environment, that entire piece of land should be protected. That's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to take a look at the lot off of Maple Way on the second. So we'll continue until, let's see, next meeting is scheduled for January 3rd. So we will continue to January 3rd.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, Next up is DEP 313620, 100 Hemlock Road.
Evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
Good
Can
evening.
everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Dave Conway with Niche Engineering. Tonight, I think the subject we had talked previously about discussing at the last meeting was going to be the operation and maintenance plans, the snow storage plan, and also the lighting plan for the new Voc school. Regarding the operation and maintenance plan and snow storage plan, those are materials that were originally submitted in the package back in September. So I'm going to ask Paige Blanchard to just give you a brief overview of what was included for those materials. And then for the lighting plan, Josh from Warner Larson, the landscape architect for the project, he'll present the lighting plan for the project and walk you through that proposal. And Paige, are you here?
Yep, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I can get started. First talking about the long-term pollution prevention and O&M plan. Let me just pull it up really quick and share my screen. There we go. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so as Dave mentioned, the long-term pollution prevention plan and stormwater O&M operation and maintenance plan were both included in the initial submission to the Conservation Commission back in September. And what these two plans are is they are intended to outline how the site should be maintained and operated throughout the course of its life. So this is what will be handed over to the project owner at the completion of construction. And both of these plans are in accordance with the Massachusetts DEP stormwater standards. So first I can touch on the long-term pollution prevention plan, which is in accordance with standard 4 of the Mass DEP standards. And this plan is generally just an overview of good housekeeping, storing materials, vehicle washing, routine inspections, spill prevention, maintenance of lawns, pest waste management, and also snow removal and de-icing. So in this plan that was submitted, there was also a snow removal plan, which I can bring up. So this is part of the long-term pollution prevention plan in the appendices. And everywhere that we have highlighted in blue indicates an area that we could store snow. And all of these areas are outside of the 100-foot buffer. And if they were to drain and melt, they would melt to catch basins that are in the parking lot. And as we've talked about in the stormwater review, all stormwater that would experience vehicular traffic, which a lot of this snow would, because that's where it would be plowing from, would be treated for water quality and TSS. So all these snow piles that would melt would be subject to those same requirements that stormwater would also be subject to. We are careful to make sure that there's nothing shown in any of the buffer zones. So in general, the long-term pollution prevention is just more of an overview of the site. And then in accordance with standard 9 of the Mass DEP, that gets into the operation and maintenance plan. And that's more specifically, how do I get that to go away? There we go. That's more specifically about the maintenance and management of the stormwater BMPs. So the intent of the operation and maintenance plan is to highlight each stormwater BMP So that can be anywhere from a area drain, a drain manhole, a water quality unit, the subsurface systems, and that gives specifics further on in the report. You can see like area drains, water quality units. So there's all different categories listed in this report. And it gives maintenance on how to maintain each one of those BMPs so that the stormwater system functions the way that it was designed and the way that it was intended to. And then we also in this include a plan that locates all of these different features on site so that the owner can be aware of where a manhole is, where an area drain is, where these different features are that they need to look at. So in general, the long-term pollution prevention and the O&M are for the site in its entirety and for the future going forward. But during construction, there is something called the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which is also often called the SWIP. And this is meant for the construction phase of the project. And this document that I have on screen here was also included in the initial submission back in September. And what this is it's a living document that we prepare for the contractors. And it highlights, what the contractor's requirements and responsibilities are to prevent stormwater pollution, but it's a draft. And as the site progresses and the contractors work on different areas of the site, they update this document to be reflective of the current conditions. So it's really a living document that's ongoing throughout the course of construction. And this document corresponds with the soil erosion and sediment control plans, which we also have included in the submission, which highlights all the different stormwater protection measures such as inlet protection, perimeter protection, silt fences, things like that. And within this document, as a high level, it's like a 300+ page document. So I'm just gonna skim over the main categories, but this is all included in the report that was submitted. So it talks about site evaluation and assessment, documentation of compliance with federal requirements, erosion and sediment control requirements. That gets into detail on a bunch of different types of erosion controls. It talks about pollution prevention standards, inspection and maintenance of all of these different items. And then there's logs to track it. And what this document also indicates is, how often these things need to be checked and what the requirements are for each one of these specific items. So that was just a very brief high-level overview of the long-term pollution prevention, O&M, snow removal, and SWIP. But I can get into any more specifics if you want to elaborate on any specific topics. Gosh.
And just so folks know, the figures will be revised for the new roadway layout. So if you hadn't noticed, like the snow storage and the O&M plan, those are be revised to reflect the final layout of the site.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go back to the drawing with the snow storage locations, please?
Sure. It's intended to be like in parking islands and areas that are out of the way.
Right.
So not like try to stay away from the sides of the roads so that when it melts, it will go into the storm drain and through the treatment drain, as opposed to running off site or into a wetland or onto a butters.
Would there be signage indicating, snow storage area or anything like that proposed?
We don't currently have specific signage. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it would probably be just to more effective to give this to the owner and to the subcontractors for them to manage the snow. If there's key areas, I've seen that as opposed to marking areas for snow storage, key area, I see more along the lines of marking key areas where you don't want snow storage.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, this is Kevin from PMA.
Yes, please go ahead.
This
Kevin.
would, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This would become part of the operation and maintenance manual. It would be turned over to the facilities director and to the administration. And it would also come along with training for whoever the personnel are that are going to be taking over the project when complete.
Okay.
Typical of other school projects. This is one of the things we go over with facilities management, facilities personnel on how to operate the site.
Yeah, one of the things we come up against is, a landscaper will be hired to plow in the winter or whatever, and won't be given any direction per se. And really, they just put the snow wherever they want it, where it's convenient.
I would be happy to speak to the superintendent, and I'm sure that he probably would have asked me to provide this drawing so that when they do bid out their snow plowing work, that they could include it in their,
Okay.
solicitation. I mean, any contractor that's worth, that knows what they're doing is going to ask where to put it. So I would think that this would go along with the, any kind of RFP or solicitation for bids. I can follow up on that.
Okay.
And we could also augment this drawing in red to show absolutely areas where snow is not to be stored. I think that would also help provide some guidance for the owner and for future maintenance folks.
That's a good suggestion. And then at some point, snow would be trucked off site if needed, I would imagine.
Yeah, at a certain point, if we get a winter like we had, I forget when that one was, but at a certain point, the site snow would have to be trucked off site.
Do the schools use a combination of town vehicles to plow and private?
I don't know that, Mr. Chairman. Again, I can find out. I don't know if it's a combined effort.
Okay.
I'll ask. So specifically, you wanted to know if the town of Wakefield assists them?
Yes.
Okay.
Easier to control if it were, the town doing the plowing than hiring, private contractors.
Sure, I can ask.
Any other questions concerning the snow storage and removal? Are you going to specify any type of low salt mix or no salt or magic salt or anything?
Well, I know the commission's expressed interest that before. I've done some research on the specifics of it. So you do need no matter what, you need some sort of de-icing material. What Mass DOT uses in areas like, say, the area like 128, 95 that contributes to the Cambridge watershed, so like their low salt areas, is they use a premix, what they call a premix, and that's a combination of rock salt and calcium chloride. So that's what seems to be the standard in the state for sensitive areas, low salt. Now the rock salt is the cheapest material to use, but I know the commission's expressed some concerns about that.
Yeah, the rock salt is primarily sodium chloride, correct?
Yeah, that's all it is. And the premix is a combination of rock salt and calcium chloride. But I think if we can ask if the town does plows. I'd like to hear what Kevin finds out from the superintendent as far as if the town is involved in this area at all, because I think we can probably make commitments for the school, but we couldn't make commitments for the town.
Right.
I have a random question that I just thought of. Do you guys mind if I ask it now?
No, sure.
Okay. Way back in the very beginning, there was a conversation about Hemlock Road and whether or not it was school property that MDC had an easement over or vice versa. And I haven't even thought about it. This was like at a pre-meeting. Did you guys ever find out what the information was on that? Does that sound familiar? Do you guys remember talking about that all the way back at the very, very beginning?
I think it's the other school. Isn't that question related to Hemlock Road from like our property line out to?
No, it was a meeting for this.
Because we own the property in front of you, and then there's a, I think in the land, I believe in the deed that was given over from the state at the time, there's just a requirement to provide
Just access, was it?
access.
Okay, that's, I remember there was a question on it and it just popped in my head when you guys were talking about plowing and I didn't remember the answer on it. So
And
if
there is
that's-
a,
sorry.
and kind of third party, I don't want to, I think there's a similar question beyond our property line about Hemlock Road.
Okay, obviously just what would apply to you guys. Okay, thank you.
Is there any snow storage being considered on the access road further down to the plan left?
To farm, no.
Not as of now, no.
Okay.
Because we tried to keep it outside of the buffers, and so
Right.
a lot of that's in the buffer.
All right, any other questions concerning the snow storage or removal?
If you want, we can move on to Josh. Are you here? I'm looking. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So we're going to lead the lighting discussion. We have Josh Millenot from Warner Larson, the landscape architect for the project. So Josh, if you want to introduce yourself and take it away.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Millenot, work with Warner Larson. We are the landscape architects on the site. And let me share my screen and we'll walk through an overview of the site lighting plan. So I got broke the site up into two reports. So we're going to start on the west side out at Farm Street. Color coded kind of the three different types
We
of
can't
light
see anything yet.
fixtures. Oh, you don't?
Nothing yet.
It says I'm sharing.
Yeah, so it started sharing screen, but it hasn't shown up yet.
Slow.
Maybe it's still loading.
I got kicked off.
Josh, I have the first plan on my screen. If you want me to share, then you can kind of.
Let me try it one more time. Let's see if this works. And if it doesn't.
No, we just see that it's started screen sharing, but nothing has shown up.
Lighting plans that I sent or not?
Not seeing it.
Don't see anything yet.
Josh, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Josh, is this it?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is gonna work. For some reason, I'm having weird issues. It keeps dropping me off. So this is a color-coded
Oops,
plan.
sorry.
No, you're fine. So this outlines the few different light fixtures that we have on site. So we have some red squares, we have some blue circles, and some kind of green diamond shapes. The red squares are parking lots and roadway lightings. Those are mounted at a 25-foot height. And as you can see, those are pretty much, as I mentioned, they're along the roadways and in the parking bays. The little kind of magenta kind of U-shape line, I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but if you kind of zoom in, yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, those shields.
Those are house side shields, yes. So that's going to limit any spill. So we put those specifically along where we are close to the wetland areas. So on let's call it the north side of this roadway that's heading out towards Farm Street, we have the added sidewalk on there. So we've put the lights along that sidewalk to illuminate the pathway for pedestrians. And then we added house side shields on the back side of that to really kind of cut the light off. All the light fixtures are LED lights. So the glare control and the light control is very good with these fixtures. And then the shields on the back side really kind of just chop that light off and reduce the amount of illumination that we're kind of sending backwards behind. It's easier to control the light going backwards than it is forwards. We want to throw the light, so to speak, out in front of the light onto the roadways and really capture that on the backside. As we kind of move down towards the right, the blue circles are pedestrian scale lights. These are mounted at either a 14-foot height, 16-foot height. We have a couple different height variations. The lights around the building are at 14 foot. And as we get down towards the athletic fields around that end of the fields, those will be 16 foot. We also have the green squares, which are building mounted lights. That just helps kind of cut costs, and those are just directly mounted on the lights. It's the same fixture that we're using in the red squares. It's the same. We're going to use that and just mount it on the building. So as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of this particular page, is we have a fixture that's on the Rakehart Reservation side of our property. We added another house side shield onto there to really, again, kind of control that light throw behind the fixture. And then the last different type of light that we have, I don't know, Dave, if you have the other page or not. We have, yep. So as you can see, the red roadway lights, they continue on down the road and into the parking lots. And then the little blue lights, those are, again, the pedestrian scale lights at the 14 or a 16-foot mounting height. And those kind of sprinkle along the pathways. And then the big kind of yellow rectangular circles, those are for athletic field lights that we have just for the track and football field. So these are a LED controlled fixture with very good photometrics and glare and light control. These will be mounted on, I believe, a 70-foot tall pole and just turned on during nighttime events as needed. Not a whole lot of kind of wetland resource areas down on this side. It's mainly just on the Hemlock side, and then those two fixtures that are kind of close to the building, on the bottom left-hand corner here. We do have a little resource area there, so we put the house side shields on those two kind of red roadway lights right down there.
What Kelvin range will the lighting be in?
I believe these are in the 5,000, maybe 5,400. I'd have to double check, but it's a bluer type light for better CRI and color.
For all the lighting or just certain areas?
The roadways will be that a little bit bluer, and the pedestrian lights, we'd step that to a warmer probably in the 3,000 Kelvin range.
Yeah, 3,000 would be certainly our preference as much as possible.
Okay. I can see if they offer, if we can get that light in the roadways in one of the warmer tones.
Okay. It's just a more natural light and it's just better for the wildlife.
Yep. Any other questions or
Yeah,
comments?
the lights above the field, so they'd
Yep.
only be used at night if there was an event going on. Would they be on a timer just in case for some reason they weren't shut off after the event? Like at a certain time they would shut off automatically, or?
Yeah, there's a control feature built into the specific manufacturer. They have an app control, so whoever has that, they can be sitting at home and they can control the lights and turn them on and off. But there is a timer associated feature. You can kind of plug that in and control it, set it at a timer, and they'll shut off when they need to. But somebody can also log into the system remotely and check to see if the lights are on, if they're off, if there's any issues, if the lamps burned out. There's a lot of internal diagnostics that the system provides. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Any other questions concerning the lighting plan for now?
No.
I have a quick question. Why are there no lights either for athletic fields or pedestrian for any of the other areas, just that track area? So with the, well, like to the top of the plan, it just looks like a bunch of existing condition. I don't see anything going on over there.
Like the baseball field and football
Yeah,
field?
yeah.
so the new track is taking over the existing track and football field that's at the top of the page. We're moving that down, bringing that into the site. So we're going to illuminate that. Typically, football is played later in the years when the sun goes down earlier than baseball is more kind of a summerish spring sport. And we didn't have lights on the baseball field, and I don't think that was part of the programming as far as what the school district wanted to have illuminated fields. They just wanted the track and football field to be lit.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions concerning the lighting plan for now?
No.
Christine, do you have a question concerning the lighting plan?
Yes, I do. I
Okay.
wondered if they would also consider putting in dimmers on the LEDs. I think it was an excellent comment you made, Bob, about having lights in the lower lighting spectrum. But I'm wondering if, say, after 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, there could be dimmers on those lights to reduce the overall impact across that area.
We can take that under advisement and coordinate back with the school and the town, but there is camera and security kind of associations with the lights, and having too dim of lights might have an effect on the security cameras for nighttime, kind of as what these cameras can see if we dim them down too much. But we'd have to coordinate with our security team to see if that's a feasible solution.
Would
the security concern, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, would the security concerns be more around the building versus up along the roadway and in other areas? Maybe they could just be focused, or maybe the dimmers could be in areas outside of those high security concern areas.
Yeah, potentially. We'd have to take a look at what that means. there's kind of a variety of reasons to keep lights on. If there's a car that's driving by and you can't catch the license plate of it because the car, the lights are too dim, for example, if somebody speeding through or not, those type of considerations that we'd have to see. I don't know what the security cameras are pointed at, what they're looking at. If it's complete site, we do have a lot of long pedestrian kind of walkways throughout the site, so having coverage on those would be fairly important. But again, I'd kind of coordinate back with the design team, the security team.
I think the most critical area would be along the roadway, with the wetland areas, as far as possible dimmers.
Yes, I know dimmers are a possibility. These light controls have that possibility to do that, especially with LEDs. You can dim them down. So it's just a coordination piece, but I'd like to coordinate with the team and the security consultants first.
Sure. Any other questions concerning lighting? Will there be any of the existing lights that are on Hemlock Road now? Would they be replaced or upgraded as part of this project?
There's no proposal to adjust any lights off of our property down Hemlock Road.
Along the roadway, is there any benefit to putting the lights on the other side of the roadway off of Farm Street? Or why did you choose that side?
The side that they're currently
Sidewalk.
Yeah.
on. There's a sidewalk right there, so we wanted
Right,
to
and you
keep
can
the
back
lights
shield them.
on the sidewalk. It's much easier to control light behind your fixture.
Yeah.
You want to throw the light kind of, so to speak, in front of you,
Yeah.
and to have so we don't want to throw light towards the wetlands. We'd like to put
Right.
that shield on the backside and throw the light away from the wetlands.
Do you know how far out the light reaches from the fixtures?
What's the footprint?
I know.
I don't know that off the top of my head. We just got photometrics run earlier this week, and I just need to coordinate that with where the wetlands are and the site plans. But I believe it's 10 feet behind the light, I think, is when we're measuring 0.0 foot candles. But I don't know how far in front they do. There's different throws.
I'm more
like
interested in
2s and
on the
4s
wetland side.
on the wetland side. Yeah, I'd have to look back further at the photometric plans. They do a whole site calculation, run the numbers for everything.
Yeah, do those plans actually show the light scatter, like in a heat diagram or anything like that?
It's a grid plot, and so you'll have a series of points that they plot out, zeros or 2.5s or whatever it is, and it's a grid pattern throughout the entire site. It's a little messy, to be honest with you. When you look at it, there's a lot of very busy.
Yeah, maybe you could give us an example, like of one fixture, what it would like closest to the wetland area, maybe.
Maybe find the worst case scenario. or
Yeah,
something,
yeah, we
if
could
the
see what
lights. Okay.
what that light scatter looks like and the distance and intensity.
I can follow up.
Okay.
With that.
Any other questions concerning the lighting plan? Okay, I guess we're all set for the time being for the lighting plan.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So how do I unshare?
Just, yeah, there should be a stop sharing.
Yep, thanks. So I didn't know if there's anything else just as an update, we're working on finalizing the plans for the new layout, the revisions, and making sure the revisions are reflected in the updated stormwater report. We have the stormwater peer consultants comments we received last time. There wasn't anything in there that was too concerning to us. I reached out to him to see what his availability is over the next couple of weeks. And I know there's interest in, we'd only do that with, I think Rebecca and Jim have asked that if we do reach out to the stormwater peer consultant, we do it with them. Just to basically give him an idea of where we're heading on the revisions, and how we're going to incorporate his thoughts into the revised plans. We're doing the same thing with LAC is doing the same thing with BSC's Matt Burns's comment letter is basically how we're going to address those comments in the revised plan. So the next meeting, what we'd hope to do which is the third, the 2 holidays in between, is basically just walk you briefly through the updates and changes, with the idea that the revised hopeful final materials could be forwarded at that point to your consultants and back to the board for final review.
Okay, that sounds good. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay. Are there any questions from the public at this point? All right. Oh, I do see a hand raised. Christine.
Right, I didn't know if now was the time to read my comment letter into the record, or if it was later.
No, now would be the time.
So go for it.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, this was submitted December 15th to the commission. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm writing with several concerns about the submissions and review of submissions for the Northeast Metro Tech Vocational School project. The project applicant has not provided sufficient documentation and explanation to allow interested stakeholders to independently verify their estimates of new impervious surface associated with the project. Most recent estimates in the stormwater report, section 3, page 7, state a change in impervious surface acreage of 4.58 acres. No figure or accounting is provided to substantiate this estimate. These estimates have changed drastically from the April 28th, 2022 response to advisory opinion, where an estimated 2.3 acres of net impervious surface was reported. I see figures in a table posted on the Conservation Commission website titled Buffer Zone Existing and Proposed, addressing pervious and impervious surface within the 25-foot buffer and within 25 to 100-foot buffer, but not for the remainder of the site. The most recent estimate of 4.58 acres does not appear to include the 6-foot sidewalks bordering the 0.5 mile road, any portion of the 71-degree extended and newly exposed rock face, nor the impervious surface associated with the proposed energy park. I understand the energy park project has not yet been approved, but it's important for both the vocational project and the gas and light department to be aware of the ramifications of choosing this location on the total new impervious surface in the area. Figures and associated narrative on the new and existing impervious surfaces at the site need to be provided for the public record. I urge the commission to require the applicant submit this critical documentation for verification, or that the project be referred to the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act review to determine whether a MEPA threshold set forth in 301 CMR 11.03 is triggered. Given the doubling of the impervious surface estimate from April 2022 to now, uncertainties in the actual estimates exist and increases to that number are likely. The applicant should elucidate these uncertainties for the commission and interested stakeholders. I'm also concerned that the public record does not contain the applicant's written comment by comment response to the peer review of the notice of intent. I urge the commission to require a response that can be reviewed by interested stakeholders. Several comments have not been addressed, including but not limited to comments 1-9, 1-10, 1-11, requesting science-based documentation of how the proposed work within the 100-foot buffer contributes to the interest of the Wetlands Protection Act and avoids altering the water quantity and quality functions of the area and contributes to flood control and storm damage prevention interests. As stated in the peer review comments, it is deeply concerning that the project as proposed retains almost no naturally vegetated buffers on the site. I urge the commission to consider the ramifications of altering this ecosystem to this effect. One more paragraph, sorry. Finally, I am very concerned that no one with time and expertise is reviewing the rock engineering report included as Appendix J, part of the stormwater report. I have seen the stormwater peer review letter prepared by BSC and seen no comments about that report. Several comments concerning statements are included regarding rockfall and icefall hazards, block toppling along the proposed slope, an apparent east-west fault line, and an exceptionally steep slope face angle. I've emailed Mr. Renault, the Wakefield town engineer, about the safety concerns and exceptional challenges to the site preparation work flagged by the author of that report and urge the commission to weigh in on this matter to the town. Thank you for your service. And that's the end of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, could you please provide a copy of that letter to us?
Certainly. And just a note that our peer reviewer for the stormwater management had another meeting tonight. So we actually haven't had a chance, to engage that part of the project yet with our peer reviewer. I do see another hand raised. Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer Fanning for Pheasantwood Drive in Wakefield. I have a question about the lighting. And I just wanted to clarify that along the ramped boardwalk, actually a question about the lighting and also the snow, along the ramped boardwalk between the building and Hemlock Road, will those lights remain on sort of around the clock 24/7? I do understand that the school is used for evening classes, which is why I asked.
Can the applicant answer that question?
Yeah, I'll answer that. I believe, yes, they will be on. That is part of the accessible route from the lower parking lot up to the main building.
Thank you.
And my question about snow was about that same area, the ramped boardwalk, which from pictures looks like sort of boards that perhaps have gaps between them. And so I wanted to ask, what was the snow removal plan for that? I wouldn't think that it could be sort of addressed the same way as a road. So would it be kind of swept off the side of the boardwalk? Would salt be used, which might then kind of fall below the boardwalk? That was my question.
David, would you like to answer that?
Yes, thanks. So correct, it won't be the same as a road because it is a boardwalk, so it's not going to be plowed. We'll look at the system. I imagine it would either be a mechanical sweeper or I would probably be the most likely for the boardwalk itself. So nothing that with blades that would probably work to damage it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Bob Brooks, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. I thank Mr. Chairman. Bob Brooks, June Circle. I'm not sure if this question is for David about the snow removal behind the school. on that side there where the 650-foot slope ledge is, there's going to be a 12-foot ditch there. Is there going to be any snow removal in that ditch, drainage ditch or rock ditch at all? Because it seems like it's a long area. I saw where the areas where the snow removal will be put, but that seems like a long stretch all the way from the back of the school down to the parking lot.
Yeah, so if Paige could share the snow removal, because there is an area back there that we're identifying for snow removal, but I think it's beyond past where the swale ends. There. So the swale's not the rock ditch is not being proposed as a snow storage area.
Yep, so the swale ends about here, and then the snow storage is over here.
So that's the snow storage, but if you go all the way, that's a 650-foot all the way down. Where is the snow removal going to be at?
The hatched blue area.
So it'd be plowed to that area D.
Okay, so what they would do is they would start at the other end and actually go all the way up, push all the snow in that one area, 650 feet.
Some of it would get cast to the side, I'm sure. You have, let's see. So it looks like there's, I don't know if there's building access to that backside of the building. What is on that backside? I see a doorway. Is there a loading dock back there, or?
Yes, so those are all like the
garage
the
doors,
large doors that access different folk areas.
right?
So like
Probably automotive with the garage doors.
automotive's down below, but each of the other facilities have, and I'm not super familiar with the insides, but they're all there's all like that's all active along there. That's why the pavement goes up to the building along there.
Yeah.
And then I believe the area to the left is outdoor seating in the cafeteria. So we didn't so it's not an area that we want to do snow storage in. So
right.
And I think this is the generator.
That's a dust collector for carpentry.
dust collector for the wood shop.
Yep. Yeah, so that back area would probably remain pretty snow free. It would need to. Okay. Bob Brooks, did that answer your question?
Partially, but I think it's acceptable now.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I've got it's about 10 o'clock, so I think we'll continue to January 3rd. And oh, somebody just raised their hand. This will be the last question.
Well, I got a question too.
Oh, sorry, Jimmy.
No, I mean, someone else raised their hand.
Yeah, Karen.
It's not a question. I was requested to read my letter that I submitted today to the Concom.
Okay.
Should I read it? It's short.
Sure. Is this regarding this project?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Who was the speaking, please?
Yeah.
Karen Johnson, Beltran Street, Malden.
Thank you.
Dan Conservation Department. The future hockey rink should not be excluded from this site plan. Kevin Nigro made a statement at the December 6, 2022 Conservation Commission meeting that the hockey rink was an early plan, that it is not in scope and there is no budget for it. That statement does not tell the whole story. On 9/20/2020, the school's building committee was told that the MSBA stated that there was no reimbursement for a rink. The rink did not go away. It continued to show up again and again as a future project. There was a purpose to the meetings and repetitious presentations. There was one site with a rink in the presentations. The plan with the future rink was the one they voted for, and it was the plan submitted for approval to the MSBA as the preferred schematic report. It is always there as a future project. Sites C1, C2, C3 can all be built for 1,600 students. Only one site has a rink. If they can get 11 other towns to pay to get the school out of the way, they can have their future project. Please consider the information collected below. Thank you for your time. And there's a PDF of, I cite different instances about, and different slides about the future rink, future project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we can make that letter available also.
Yes,
Thank
and
you,
that was
Chair.
submitted today. I
Okay.
should have.
Chairman, if I could,
Yes, please, go ahead.
as stated, on behalf of the school administration, I checked with them and they spoke. I spoke to the school administration before I answered that question at the last meeting, or the one referenced by the woman from Walden. And I can tell you that there is no rink planned. There was no rink submitted to the MSBA, and there is no rink in our budget. I'll reiterate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jim.
I just wanted to know, on that screen he had up before, where the limit of works was on the area that you talked about plowing.
Paige, could you share that again, please? Or whoever's
Yeah,
sharing.
David.
I can share it. I'm not sure if this plan has the limit of work line on it.
So is that a stone wall that you see there where the rubble looks like rubble?
No, that's the ledge face.
That's the ledge face.
Yep.
So,
And then
okay.
So we can provide the same plan and turn the limit of work line on. It's just not displayed
Yeah.
on this plan.
Well, how far away is that ledge line from the property line? Can you scale that, or can you
The
measure it?
property line is this thick line here.
Oh, so what's the other dark line?
That's just an offset line that really should not be shown.
It's a zoning offset for, your front yard and side yards.
So, your geological report, they said that, you should stay so far away from the blasting so that you don't, kill the vegetation above. I forget how many feet it was. Is there any places here that like the abutter might have an issue, or that you shouldn't be plowing, blasting so close to his property? Dave,
Mr.
can
Chairman,
you
I could try to answer the question. Jim, can you a little more clear on what is you're after there?
Well, I don't, the geological report, they talked about staying at least a certain distance away with the blasting. Because with the blasting.
Yes,
Because
but
the
away from
blasting
what?
is gonna cause damage so far out, and you could have trees fall down later on. So there was some distance in the report. I don't have it with me right now. I don't know if it was 8 feet or 16 feet. But I don't know if there's any place that you're gonna be blasting that close that you might affect someone else's property.
Yeah, we can be sure to go over that. I'm sure that the fire department, when we apply for our permit, is going to,
Well, I don't think he's gonna
sure
care.
all that is discussed and reviewed before he issues a permit to our blasting expert.
Well, I think that you should contact the abutters and confirm with them that you're not gonna disturb, I mean, you can't blast on someone else's property.
I take a little umbrage to the fact you think we're gonna blast on someone's property, Jim. That's kind of a crazy statement.
No,
So
well, I mean,
rest
if
assured,
you're
we are
gonna- if you're
outside.
gonna-
So Jim, if I can finish.
Yeah.
We've already talked about this before. It's come up at building committee meetings, come up at these meetings several times. We're actually outside of the reporting area for videotaping and documenting the condition of people's properties, but we've gone on record as saying that we will. We're outside of the radius as required by the regs, but we've talked to the people on June Circle and anyone else that approaches us that thinks that they could be effective, and we've committed, the administration is committed to a third-party person to, with permission of the owner, we can video and photograph the outsides of their property, and if they allow us to and sign a waiver, they'll gladly go inside and videotape the interior of the property too, to protect them against any future claims from blasting.
This is coming out of your report. I'm not making this up. It's something
Yeah,
that,
so
I'm just
again,
saying.
I talked about
now
it,
let
Jim,
me
and I
finish.
reiterated it.
Let me
Shut
finish.
up, Kevin.
Excuse me?
I'm just saying, just to be sure, because they talked about they had a specific term for pushing up the trees. That can happen in that distance. So they said to stay a certain distance away. And I'm just wanting to make sure, number one, that the abutters know, and number two, that you've addressed it.
And I'll
That's all.
repeat that we have.
Well, you don't have to repeat it. I heard you.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? All right, we will continue until January 3rd. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your
Have a
time
nice
and everyone.
Nice holiday, everybody.
Have a nice holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good holiday too.
Thank you.
Get ready to make my motion.
Well, hang on. Rebecca, do you have any other business?
Definitely not.
Judy, do you have any other business?
Nope. The only thing is, Horsley Witten is moving along quite well with the preliminary open space plan work. So it's going well.
Excellent.
It's great, yeah.
It's true. We were discussing, they're doing a really good job and they're on top of everything and we get lots of notifications and I'm just so far very impressed.
Good to hear.
It is good to hear.
Oh, I just have one more thing. Elaine was in today and for some reason she looks incredibly relaxed. And she's no longer working so many hours with Wakefield. It may just be a coincidence, but
Things must be quiet in
it was
Winchester.
noticeable.
We can't let that stand.
But so you're saying she picked up hours in Winchester. You're saying Winchester is just really easy, obviously.
She's living the good life, I guess.
I think she's taking vacation time from both places right now. Maybe that's it.
That could be.
They're not building new high schools in Winchester.
No.
Yes.
No Article 97 swaps, right?
We can't transfer to the Winchester Concom.
Yeah. She
Is
looks
that
good though.
moving?
She's looking forward to dinner.
Oh, she said that she can only stay for like 45 minutes because she has her meeting that night.
And I ran into Frank, and he can't make it that night.
No, he said it was the only night.
Is it his dart night?
No, he's gonna be away. He's gonna be in Florida that day.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy, what are you looking for?
He's just wandering.
Let's go to get some books.
And is it clear? I'm sorry. What's happening at the next hearing for the Voc Tech? Did you
Yeah, they said it.
storage? I mean, drainage.
They said what they anticipate will be at the next meeting. I wrote it down somewhere amongst these notes. I'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
And Rebecca, you're gonna send us an invitation for the site visit to Maple Way?
I haven't done it already. Yes, I will do that.
0102-23 at 8:30 a.m.
8:30 a.m.
Maple Way parking lot.
Okay.
You've actually walked that lot before. I forget
Oh,
what-
really? Back when they purchased it?
Probably.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was a proposal to do something with Maple Way, expand Maple Way or something, and I remember we walked it. I forget what the reason was. The Sulo farm abuts that property, the only working farm still in Wakefield. Abuts that property.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's on the farm?
I know dogs. I know he raises Shiba Inus. He also had gardens. I'm not sure what else.
Oh, that's great.
And are we ready for Peter's motion?
Peter's anxious to
Yeah, I'm ready.
that motion.
Motion
to make a motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second? Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Jimmy,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote to adjourn. All right, we'll see everybody in a couple weeks. Have a great holiday and
Yes.
Thank
Great
you.
holiday, everyone.
See you. Night.
good
Happy
night.
holidays.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Cool.